Okay, good morning, everyone. This is School for A Course in Miracles. This is Bruce Rawles, and thanks as always to Tim Wise and Lynn Corona for this wonderful venue. The school's platform is such a great way to share what we found helpful with the course and reinforce it in ourselves, because we know that to give is to receive, and whatever we share with each other, we say, "Oh yeah, that's right. I could do this more often." So that's kind of how I look at it anyway. Um, so today's topic is chapter 19, section 1. I guess I should grab my book and get the page number in case anybody wants to know that. Let's see. Does anybody have it already handy? Section 1 of chapter 19 is
398.
is that
398.
398. There it is. Yep, healing and faith. Thank you, Marwa. In fact, Myra, would you like to read the first paragraph?
No, thank you, Bruce. I'm still eating.
Oh, okay.
I'm just
All
finishing
good.
my dinner
Well, all good.
in a little while.
How about Audrey? You got you were next on my screen anyway, so would you like
I
to read?
would love to.
Thank you.
Okay.
Before you do, I was just going to say a few introductory thoughts. I didn't write any of this down, but it just occurred to me that, looking at the sections in chapter 19, which is such a heavy hitting chapter and so much great stuff in it, uh, Ken Wapnick wrote an entire book called The Journey Home about just section 4 of chapter 19, although he, in full disclosure, pulled in a whole bunch of stuff from elsewhere in the course. But it's an outstanding book. But these first 3 sections, healing and faith, sin versus error, and the unreality of sin, really set the stage for tackling those obstacles to peace, because we have to have faith in something that's real, and what's real, of course, is that part of our mind that we call Holy Spirit that says nothing happened.
And that's
Not to
about how
worry.
loud
You
it
need
talks
to
too.
look at it, but nothing happened, right? And if we can do that, then we're putting our faith where it really belongs, instead of the blind faith of the ego, which is, trusting in some horizontal dream scenario to make us happy, or to avoid the ones that we think won't make us happy. And then the next one after this is sin versus error, which to me was like a huge aha when I remember first reading it. It was like, well, if sin and error are different, and our reality is that we are just making a correctable mistake, which is what error represents, then that changes everything. I mean, we really could see our real identity as infinitely worthy, and see everyone as having that same infinitely worthy identity, despite what ego's incessant propaganda machine would dictate. So we just have to question that, question every little shred of ego's fraudulent evidence that says that it's a sin, and Holy Spirit says, nope, correctable error, correctable error, correctable error. So, but in order to do that, we need to be able to trust. And I think faith and trust go hand in hand. And so healing and faith is a great, primary foundation for that. And then we need to see the unreality of sin after the sin versus error. And then they get the obstacles to peace. So that's all, the coming attractions in chapter 19. But meanwhile, we're right here at ground level. We've cleared the weeds. Now we're ready to lay the foundation, which is healing and faith. So, Audrey, if you would, thanks.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm actually going to be leading next week, and it is the second part. It is very deep, rich stuff. It's it's wonderful, and I don't know what I would have thought when I first looked at it, but today I'm just grateful. Okay, so healing and faith, number 1. We said before that when a situation has been dedicated wholly to truth, peace is inevitable. Its attainment is the criterion by which the wholeness of the dedication can be safely assumed. Yet we also said that peace without faith will never be attained, for what is dedicated to truth as its only goal is brought to truth by faith. This faith encompasses everyone involved, for only thus the situation is perceived as meaningful and as a whole. and everyone must be involved in it, or else your faith is limited and your dedication incomplete. Which reminds me of my new favorite quote from Eckhart Tolle, which is about surrender, which is what this is talking about. So surrender is wholehearted faith. It's like, I don't know, I give up. There's this conversation about the difference between surrender and submission. Submission is, well, I'm going to trust you now, Holy Spirit, but I'm holding back some concerns. But surrender is, take it. This is the quote from Eckhart Tolle, if I may.
Sure.
It says, don't look for peace. Don't look for any other state than the one you are in now. Otherwise, you will set up inner conflict and unconscious resistance. Forgive yourself for not being at peace. And this is the important line. The moment you completely accept your non-peace becomes transmuted into peace. Anything you accept fully will get you there. This is the miracle of surrender. And I feel like that's what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. And accepting fully and looking fully with Holy Spirit, I think are kind of equivalent. And seeing that, what we made has not made us happy. That, and that it's our own free will that is involved in every moment as to whether or not we're at peace. That that aha um, thought, it seems like that's what leads to it, isn't it? I mean, just like, oh, wait a minute, secret of salvation. I'm doing this to myself. Oh yeah, I think I read that somewhere. Yeah, exactly. And forgiving ourselves for choosing, you know, bizarrely to want to not be at peace, is at the heart of it, isn't it? Yeah. Annalena.
First, I love what Audrey passed on around Eckhart Tolle, because I do think radically forgiving and radically accepting our discomfort has a kind of alchemical effect and shift around the experience of discomfort. But I was thinking about faith as Audrey was reading, and as human beings, we experience ourselves in this time-space continuum and time, right? So where does faith come in for me in this process is there's a kind of stopgap that, God or Jesus wouldn't recognize, but as human beings, we do. Like, we do this process, and sometimes there's a kind of stopgap, like an interim time where the difficulty hasn't yet shifted. And for me, that's the moment my faith steps in. Like, if I just hang in there with these processes, with this degree of faith, that by and by, it's going to shift, it'll heal in its own time. And that's out of my hands. And that's my faith, and my faith in the Holy Spirit that I did my bit, the Holy Spirit will take care of the rest. And if I'm discomforted that much longer, that's just the stopgap. But Jesus doesn't perceive that because he's off the timeline.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. That we're trying to look through the clouds of guilt on our own, and and typically it's to see a result within the dream that we think is going to be better, instead of, we don't really know what waking up from the dream is like exactly, even though we get little glimpses. And it seems like, we just keep trying to well, speaking for myself, when I try to make the dream work on the level of the dream, and have what I call faith in thinking that the dream is going to work out somehow. Uh, well, no, but what we really want not only will work out, but it's already a done deal, and we're just dreaming that it hasn't happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I often make the mistake of trying to find evidence in the world or find evidence in my experience, and sometimes that shows up, and sometimes it doesn't, and then that's faith for me.
Yeah, yeah, and the stopgap, I think, can sometimes take the form of when we um, begin to question, the things that we think we want, as the Song of Prayer suggests. The true prayer is forgetting the things we think we need, and that, it seems like the stopgap, the intermediate corrective steps can take the form of realizing that I can be peaceful if I just lighten up and loosen my white knuckled grip on trying to fix the dream and steer it to where I want it to go, kind of thing. Yeah, thanks. Chris.
So my somewhat silly question for the day is the difference between faith and trust. And to me, I don't think there is any, but unless faith somehow goes deeper, broader than trust. Maybe you have trust in a specific thing, but you have overall faith in our own salvation, or our own believing in our atonement principle. But Bruce, do you or anybody else, like in faith in the glossary, it says the faith is the expression of where we choose to place our trust. We are free to have faith, or I would say trust, in the ego or the Holy Spirit, in the illusion of sin in others, or in the truth of their holiness as sons of God. So there's a little bit of my answer there, that faith and truth, faith in truth of the holiness of the sons of God. Sometimes I feel like I'm just nitpicking to delay my own arrested development, but maybe not. I don't know. Audrey always helps me out on these things.
I think we're all under self house arrest here, maybe.
Chris, you are my spirit animal. I absolutely
Yeah.
also keep myself, in knots so I don't have to awaken.
No.
But let me tell you what AI says about it, because he knows everything. Faith involves a belief in something without proof, while trust is a confidence in someone or something based on experience or evidence. And we could fight that, but that's my experience. With me, trust usually involves some prior understanding or evidence, whereas faith, it's blind in the best possible way.
Thank you.
Come on, people,
Thanks.
argue.
No. I like both of what you said. I like what Chris read from the glossary, and I like what you shared, Audrey. And
we don't argue; we just expand, I think.
But it does seem that in the way that you shared it, that the idea of faith is really which of the two thought systems do I want to believe in, right? But when we start believing in Holy Spirit's correction, we realize, oh, and actually, then that does give us evidence in terms of how we feel and the peace that is a result of that, even if it's just sporadic and intermittent. And then that becomes the experiential component that we can then start trusting, right? How's that? That sound good? Okay, Susie.
All my dogs want to answer this question. So biblically speaking, faith is the evidence of things hoped for. Faith is believing in something that you can't see.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think our the course I think suggests that our egos are all blind, and that what we call light, the electromagnetic stuff, has nothing to do with the light of the atonement, which is that nothing happened in eternity and in truth. So yeah, so the blind faith has obviously got to be an ego thing, right? So at least that's how I'm looking at it. Lisa.
Yeah, I just want to draw attention to the first part of what he says in the glossary, the expression of where we choose to place our trust. I don't know, I just felt like that was important to stress that, because yeah.
Thank you.
The expression.
Yeah. Well, as usual, the farther we read, the more we get help, right? So maybe let's see. Since you're next on my screen, Chris, would you
We're
like to
so
read?
nice here, but Bruce, was that a way of telling Lisa to shut up?
No, I like what she said completely. Were you finished, Lisa? Did I? Okay. Oh, good, good, good. Okay.
We had a rabble rouser this morning. I had a good
Yeah.
breakfast.
Okay. Would you like to read paragraph 2, Chris?
Oh yeah, that'll shut me up. Thank you. Paragraph 2. Every situation properly perceived becomes an opportunity to heal the Son of God. And he is healed because you offered faith to him, giving him to the Holy Spirit and releasing him from every demand your ego would make of him. Thus do you see him free, and in this vision does the Holy Spirit share. And since he shares it, he has given it. And since he shares it, he has given it. And so he heals through you. It is this joining him in a united purpose that makes this purpose real, because you make it whole. And this is healing. The body is healed because you came without it and joined the mind in which all healing rests. Wow. At first I said, okay, that's pretty clear. As soon as I start seeing my brothers as spirit, or as Jesus or Holy Spirit sees everybody, including me, that is what faith is. Faith in that we are all sons of God. And then it seemed like at least that's how I was reading that. And then he threw a little healing in here. And since yes, it's really, so it's again, it's not me healing. I kind of kidding to begin with laying the hands on my own head there, but the Holy Spirit through my right mind does the healing. This is healing. I like the last line too. The body, it threw me a little bit. The body is healed because you came without it. We're not bodies, but we came here and we're still not bodies. What are you talking about? I'm right here, man. No, not quite. The body is healed because you came, I suppose, to earth without it, or and joined the mind in which all healing rests. So that's where we need a little faith, maybe a little willingness, or then maybe that's really what he's saying is faith in the ability going in the mind in which all healing rests, in our right mind. Go to that, back to the decision maker, and choose the right mind, and that's where the healing rests. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that last line caught my attention too. And I was thinking about the phrase, leave your body at the door, or leave your identification with it anyway. Obviously, it's pretty difficult in our everyday practice to do that completely. But we can begin to think about how we can look past the form to the content, and the content is always, we're all innocent in eternity, and we all, like Kim Upnick says over and over again, we all have those 3 parts to our mind: the decision maker, which is always choosing between the other 2 parts of ego and Holy Spirit, and that's what makes us all the same and in the same boat, and equally and infinitely worthy of compassion and trust and hope and faith. And because nothing happened, but we just don't see that yet, because we're still looking with our blind eyes, right, so to speak. Yeah. Thus do you see him free, and in this vision does the Holy Spirit share, line 3. So, and then before that, releasing him from every demand your ego would make of him. To me, that's huge. I mean, every special relationship demands that, our egos demand that things be a certain way with all the others in our lives, that whether they're, people that we live with, or we see on the screens, or we just think about. A lot of demands if we are watching our minds, and we see how how pervasive that could be. Yeah. Anyone else on that paragraph? And Elena.
I would just say on this paragraph that I find in the moment it gave me a lot of comfort and relief. You know, sentences like, thus do you see him free.
Mhm.
And in this vision does the Holy Spirit share. And so I'm appreciating it in the moment because, you know, recently I learned of a person who used to be in my life and, you know, their declination, you know, like what they're going through. And it's not a person with whom I choose to associate any longer, but it gives me comfort and it brings on my faith that by and by in all people's lives, you know, they're going to find their healing too. And maybe not even in the context of this lifetime, but it just gives me confidence that they too are going to be released the way this paragraph suggests. And all I can do in fellowship within my mind is see that person perfect as he was created and just hold that vision for him and leave it up to Holy Spirit, right?
Mhm. Mhm. And doesn't it also seem frequently that in order to see the perfection, we have to be willing to look at how much we want to project the our ego's imperfection onto everyone and everything, and not condemn ourselves when we catch ourselves doing that, right? Yeah, thanks. Marissa.
Yeah, love this paragraph as well. And it really tells me that it's certainly good for me today because I was thinking about a situation with my son and trying to control it in my head. And I think faith and trust is the opposite of control. It's the opposite of conflict. It's like the giving up temporarily of conflict and trusting that there's something else there that we can't see, but that little by little we start to experience as we let go of control. So thank you.
Thank you. And it may not be reflected in the on the level of form with suddenly saying, "Oh, I'm hands off. I'm not going to touch anything around the house or at work or you know or what wherever or whatever." But it's I think it's just watching how ego wants to micromanage and you know obsessively compulsively make sure everything in its dream is just so, and all the things that it doesn't want are just gone in various ways, you know. And yeah, exactly. Thanks. Jim, would you like to read paragraph 3? There's your audio and now your
Okay.
video. There we
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Paragraph 3. The body cannot heal because it cannot make itself sick. It needs nothing. It needs no healing. Its health or sickness depends entirely on how the mind perceives it and the purpose that the mind would use it for. It is obvious that a segment of the mind can see itself as separated from the universal purpose. When this occurs, the body becomes its weapon used against this purpose to demonstrate the fact, quotes, that separation has occurred. The body thus becomes an instrument of illusion, acting accordingly, seeing what is not there, hearing what truth has never said, and behaving insanely, being imprisoned by its insanity. That's a great description of life as we know it.
Yeah, yeah, really. For the most
In
part, huh? With a
yeah,
few little glimmers of sanity
yeah,
interspersed, huh? Yeah.
yeah.
I think the course is trying to tell us those little glimmers that you know eventually we could reverse that and have that be the predominant thing instead of the occasional luminous blips that could be the occasional uh, lapses into darkness that could be fully recovered from eventually, right? Yeah, exactly. The instrument of illusion. Yeah, that and if the body is neutral, as the Course tells us, and everything in the world is neutral, then how could it be anything but you know a dream uh, scenario that's independent um, on its own, but depends completely on which thought system we use to interpret it with, right? Either a classroom or a prison. The body needs no healing. Yeah, how could an illusion need healing? How could a dream need healing? Depends entirely on how the mind perceives it and the purpose the mind would use it for. Well, for grievances or for forgiveness. Straightforward, huh? Anyone else on that paragraph? There's a phrase that's I've heard more and more in the media in the last few years, weaponizing. So in sentence 5, when this occurs, the body becomes it's weaponized, basically, used against this purpose, which is the universal purpose, of course, is to wake up, right? To demonstrate the quote fact, unquote, that separation has occurred. Well, if I'm listening to the ego's propaganda, I'm basically using my mind in a split fashion to weaponize the body, which is intrinsically neutral, to reinforce an insane idea that the separation happened. But the Holy Spirit says, hey, I got this swords into plowshares thing figured out. Just hand it over to me. I'll convert it to a classroom for peace instead of a prison of warfare. Okay. Lisa, you're next on my screen. Would you like to read paragraph 4?
Paragraph 4.
Thank you.
Do not overlook our earlier statement that faithlessness leads straight to illusions. For faithlessness is the perception of a brother as a body, and the body cannot be used for purposes of union. If then you see your brother as a body, you have established a condition in which uniting with him becomes impossible. Your faithlessness to him has separated you from him and kept you both apart from being healed. Your faithlessness has thus opposed the Holy Spirit's purpose and brought illusions centered on the body to stand between you. And the body will seem to be sick, for you have made of it a quote unquote enemy of healing and the opposite of truth. So, if he describes in the glossary faith as the expression of where we choose to place our trust, we are free to have the faith in the ego or the Holy Spirit. But if we put it in the body, then we're putting it in like nothing. So I guess that is faithlessness, right? So
yeah, pretty much.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when we put our faith in something like that, that is in essence faithlessness. So
and just noticing how often we do that and forgiving ourselves when we do that. Just say, wow, how silly was I to appendage my peace of mind on what happens or doesn't happen to this body or someone else's body. And obviously it doesn't mean we don't do all the normal things and use whatever magic we find helpful, and encourage everyone else to take care of their bodies and their situations, and in the kindest way possible. But at the same time, we can, I think, metaphorically do the Course's version of chewing gum and walking at the same time by being normal, doing the normal things in the world, while remembering that's like, well, I'm a dream figure, I'm a dreamer watching a dream figure.
but how many
I just
times
corrected
do we
myself.
not do that? I mean, really, when we're doing our normal thing in the world, I mean, don't we look at everybody as a body? I mean, it
Yeah,
takes extra thought to remember that that's not the case.
exactly. Initially, I think it takes an enormous amount to turn that whole locomotive around.
Right.
Yeah, but over time, when we catch ourselves a little bit more frequently and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm dreaming," and I could see peace instead of this.
Right.
I'm not the the dream figure, like I just Freudian slipped. Said, I'm the dreamer. I'm the dreamer. I could, if I see myself as the dreamer, then that then is changing my faith uh, to the Holy Spirit, because I, as a dreamer instead of a dream figure, uh, I could now see the innocence. And one of the things that this paragraph reminded me of is the line that I find really helpful, and that is, the Course doesn't ask, I'm paraphrasing as usual, the Course doesn't ask us to not see bodies. It basically says, do you want to see, your siblings sinless? I'd get a little alliteration in there. Do you want to see your brother innocent, your sister innocent, right? And if I can remember to do that, then I've shifted my faith from the ego to the Holy Spirit. And I'll still see bodies. I mean, how could we not see bodies? And the Course says that'd be a particularly unworthy form of denial. But to see the ego's interpretation of bodies as absurd and therefore forgivable and correctable, that's, I think, what the Course keeps leading us inexorably to. And then we can have more and more frequent, peaceful episodes where we have these little aha moments. Says, oh yeah, I'm seeing a bunch of faces on a screen on a computer that seem to be bodies, but I'm really, I'm a mind um, communicating with other parts of what seem to be a split mind, but really is one mind. Thanks. Chris, and then Susie.
I this might have been a quote from some famous evolved person, maybe not, but I've always liked it, and it's I'll give you my explanation for it in a minute. But it's all is in the effort; the rest is none of my business. And all is in the effort. Now I see is a little willingness we have to see things like Jesus does, or the Holy Spirit, or the little willingness to see peace instead of this. All is in the effort. The little willingness is the effort, and the rest is none of my business. The rest is my wanting to perceive the so-called others, wanting to understand their wrong mind or their right mind. Which do I know? I don't know which one they're coming from, but in my ego mind or my judgmental mind, it's obviously, I think they're out of their gourd. They're in their wrong mind. But that is none of my business, because I have no idea what anybody else is going through, what their path is, how anything really. So if I can just let that go, that's between that person and Holy Spirit, however they look at that. So anyway, that's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. I don't know where my gourd is either. So in case that's helpful, I don't think any of us do. but the whole thing of needing to know whether someone else, with quotes around the else, is coming from, to me, I try to remember, and sometimes successfully, more and more successfully over time, that it doesn't matter whether someone is coming from their right mind or their wrong mind, because if I am listening to Holy Spirit, I'm going to see through the facade. I'm going to be using, I think, what this section is talking about, the Course's idea of faith in, Holy Spirit's correction, which basically is to know that behind whatever behavior or appearance that my ego would tell me is all there is, there's a reality that is eternally innocent. And regardless of whether someone is calling for help, calling for loving kindness, or expressing help or loving kindness, my appropriate response is always to come from that helpful, loving, kindness place, right? So that's, and that the effort seems like it's always overcoming the resistance, but it's really only effort from the ego's perspective. At least that's been my experience. Is if you notice that when you actually have the little willingness, it's like there's an ease and a relaxation and a comfort and a serenity that is an immediate result of, what sometimes is called surrender. It's not like a giving up in the sense of it's not like a despair of, oh no, it's not really sacrificing anything. It's a surrender that has no cost. It's giving up what never worked. And in that sense, I guess I can align with the idea of surrender too. It's like it's the giving up of what never worked. Yeah, but the effort is always. Doesn't it seem like the effort is always looking at it from the ego and thinking, oh no, I got to plow through this thing that I don't want to plow through, and which is like this granite wall of infinite thickness, or steel, whatever. And then from the Holy Spirit's perspective, it's like, well, I could drop a feather or a button through this cloud because there's nothing there. Yeah, Susie.
Thank you. I'm kind of following this as level confusion. For me, I went to see another eye doctor who told me that nothing happened to my left eye, but my right eye is a mess. And so I just didn't say anything. I thought, I'm just going to be kind here. No, I got my total vision back in one of my eyes, but not yet in the other. Not yet, because I will. And she said, you may never. And I'm like, well, I will, but can you just give me a pair of glasses that's going to work right now? I just need some for right now. Well, that's a pretty big expense. You might need to, what do you go to a retina specialist? I'm like, no, like you all were saying, this body is so demanding and so high maintenance. And no, I just need a pair of glasses. Okay. Well, can you just write me a prescription for, just go ahead. This woman was so worried about my eyes that are going to be totally healed. I just wished I could have given her some of my faith for my eyes, but I couldn't do it. And then I realized I'm in level confusion right now.
Well, yeah, there's nothing in the course that says don't go to the eye doctor and do whatever, might be helpful. I mean, 3 years ago I had cataract surgery. I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. I like modern medicine. It's about the most surgery I've ever had done on anything. And so yeah, I'd say good magic. I like this stuff. But that the course is, like you say, on a completely different level, and the ophthalmologist that is in the course is that Jesus represents is, he says, well, I'm prescribing 24/7 forgiveness for you, and that will correct your vision. Right. Let's see. Myra, are you ready to read?
Sure. What
Thanks.
Which one?
I think
5?
we're on 5.
5? Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, 5. It cannot be difficult to realize that faith must be the opposite of faithlessness. No, it's not difficult. Yet the difference in how they operate is less apparent, though it follows directly from the fundamental difference in what they are. Okay, faithlessness would always limit and attack. Faith would remove all limitations and make whole. Faithlessness would destroy and separate. Faith would unite and heal. Well, he's really making it very clear. Faithlessness would interpose illusions between the Son of God and his Creator. Faith would remove all obstacles that seem to rise between them. Faithlessness is wholly dedicated to illusions. Faith, wholly, I'll add in the word dedicated, to truth. Partial dedication is impossible. Truth is the absence of illusion. Illusion, the absence of truth. I love Jesus' logic. Both cannot be together, nor perceived in the same place. No. To dedicate yourself to both is to set up a goal forever impossible to attain. For part of it is sought through the body, thought of as a means for seeking out reality through attack. The other part would heal, and therefore calls upon the mind and not the body. Well, the whole first part is very, very obvious. Nothing to add to that. There's no problems. I think everybody can really understand the difference now between faithlessness and faith. He makes it very, very clear and obvious. But I think this last part, that's about what we're choosing, and that we become very vigilant and very aware and very conscious that to dedicate yourself to both is to set up a goal forever impossible to attain. For part of it is sought through the body, thought of as a means for seeking out reality through attack. So that's when we dedicate ourselves to the faithlessness. And we're still working through the body, seeking through the body, still looking outside as if there's something outside that we can find. And he ends that beautifully. The other part, that's the right-mindedness. This is the difference between wrong mind and right mind. The other part, the right mind, would heal, and therefore calls upon the mind, and not the body. So very evident, wrong mind, right mind, ego, Holy Spirit. The ego is always working with the body, and the Holy Spirit works through the body. It's a big difference, yeah.
Very big difference. Yep.
Myra, can you say that one more time, please?
That the ego and the wrong mind is always working with the body through in the using the body, but the Holy Spirit will work through the body, never in the body. Work through.
Thank you.
Yeah, the word through is such a helpful word, because if I think anything of value is coming from this dream figure, this Bruce action figure, I'm in for trouble, you know, and that's the attack, right? Because the little dream figures that we think we are a lot of the time are need machines, and they're going to be blinded by those uh, apparent shortcomings, and the only way that they can really express is through attack. You know, it's like they're making demands upon other parts of the dream to I want it thus. It's got to be this way, and you know, every ego's, you know, in whether it's subtle or not so subtle, in a continuous tantrum uh, mode of one sort or another, right? It's just like we keep making demands on how we want the world to be, and yet the Holy Spirit can just look at that and say, yeah, that little toddler part of your mind, you know, you'll weary of that eventually, and, want to find stability where it can be found, which is in an identity that doesn't change, that is not subject to space and time, and faithlessness and attack and limitations. You know, faith would remove all limitations and make whole. Uh, we get glimpses of it when we, even if it just momentarily, question uh, the incessant propaganda and neediness of the ego, and its tendency to always, you know, attack first and ask questions later. The Holy Spirit says, well, ask the question of, you know, what is it for first, and then you know, then you can sort of count to 10 before launching into another attack, and just say, oh, wait a minute, what do I really want to come of this situation? Where's what am I putting my faith in, right? Yeah. Truth is the absence of illusion, illusion the absence of truth. A lot of these, you know, pure non-dual statements here. You both cannot be together nor perceive in the same place. To dedicate yourself to both is to set up a goal forever impossible to attain, because we're trying to use two different thought systems, both of which have diametrically opposed goals, right? Yeah. So it's like two locomotives on a track that they're coupled together and but facing the opposite directions, and you can stoke them up, and a lot of sparks can fly on the wheels on the rails, and a lot of smoke billowing up, but they're not going to get very far compared to if they were both pushing in the same direction. But, anyway, anything else on that paragraph? The other part would heal, and therefore calls upon the mind and not the body. It's always about the mind, huh? Yeah. Let's see, Betsy, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
If I can, I was just looking back at paragraph 5, sentence 6, that faithlessness is wholly dedicated to illusions and faith wholly to truth. And I was thinking about that and thinking, there are a lot of things in my life that I've looked at and thought, I don't really know how much I've been wholly dedicated to anything. But when you really look at it as decision maker, wrong mind. Okay, so anything I do with my wrong mind, that's wholly dedicated, 100% dedicated to faithlessness and to illusion. Anyway, it just had me, I just had to look at that again. So, and I guess the decision maker is still trying to make its choice and say, okay, I want to wholly dedicate 100% of the time towards faithfulness, towards truth. So anyway, okay, I'll stop and do 6.
Well, I just to comment on what you just shared, and the course doesn't ask us to have immediate dedication. It just asks
Thank
us
you.
to gradually notice how dedicated we are to the ego and how abysmal that has turned out for us, and to be, completely. He says, we must be completely honest with each other, and then in one of Ken Wapnick's commentaries, he points out, yeah, and it's not like Jesus or Holy Spirit is withholding anything from us. Guess who's doing the withholding of the facts, right? So we just need to just notice how much we have been foot dragging and whether consciously or unconsciously, chanting the "Hell no, I won't go" mantra to the Holy Spirit's correction, and just say, well, that really hasn't worked out very well for me. To the degree that I've resisted the peace, I haven't been peaceful. How how amazing is that? Right? Yeah. Thanks.
Right. Okay, paragraph 6. The inevitable compromise is the belief that the body must be healed and not the mind. For this divided goal has given both an equal reality, which could be possible only if the mind is limited to the body and divided into little parts of seeming wholeness, but without connection. This will not harm the body, but it will keep the delusional thought system in the mind. Here, then, is healing needed, and it is here that healing is. For God gave healing not apart from sickness, nor established remedy where sickness cannot be. They are together, and when they are seen together, all attempts to keep both truth and illusion in the mind, where both must be, are recognized as dedication to illusion and given up when brought to truth, and seen as totally unreconcilable with truth in any respect or in any way. The key part from that paragraph for me that I think I can actually get is that it's all to do with the mind, and that I don't find salvation basically in the body, that it always has to point to the mind and making the what's my decision maker choosing.
Exactly. It's always about the decision maker, and I think that's such an important reminder, is that, and thank you again, Ken Wapnick, for reminding us that that the course is always and only about the mind, and in particular it's pitched to the decision maker. It's that the little blue dot in my version of Ken's chart up here that basically is constantly choosing between the Holy Spirit or the ego, and 24/7. And that's where it's all happening, because all of this stuff that seems to be happening outside is really going on in that little blue dot. And that's where I'm switching my faith either to insanity or to sanity in every moment. And if I try to have a hybrid system where I've got, well, I want to run this thing on part insanity and part sanity, we're not going to get very far, but we have to prove that to ourselves through repeated experiments. And just notice that when we try to mix the two thought systems, we get mixed results. and and usually it's pretty obvious that it doesn't work very well. But even when we just use the Holy Spirit's correction and learn to see our brothers innocent, our siblings as sinless, that even those brief moments of sanity bring peace to us. And I think that's what we're learning to put our faith in, right? We're learning to see that we can actually trust Holy Spirit's results, and that's the experience we want, that then our faith is justified. But there's so many places, and that's why and this paragraph is a perfect example of why there aren't 8 billion people jumping on the Course bandwagon and saying, yeah, this is so great. Because it's a wonderfully radical teaching. I mean, it says we have to question every value that we hold, not 3% or even 97%. It's like, ultimately we have to question every value. Well, it's like, wow, that's yeah, it's heavy duty stuff. But it's only heavy duty from the ego's perspective, because we're so convinced that we pulled off this impossible crime, and yet Holy Spirit says, nothing happened. You're fine. You're good. Just have to have a little more faith. Yeah. And we're all headed that way. So, Marissa.
Yeah, it's just looking at sentence 6 in that paragraph reminds me of what I was thinking about this week. Lesson 80, the solution is inherent in the problem.
Yes.
It's like a combo thing.
Mm-hmm.
For God gave healing not apart from sickness, and nor establish remedy where sickness cannot be. So the solution is in the problem.
Yes.
It's inherent.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I was just going to comment on that too. So yeah, thank you for mentioning it, because if we didn't have the solution in our mind, that'd be a pretty crappy salvation. It's like, well, okay, here's salvation, but you can't reach it. Sorry, it's out of reach. It's it's off limits. But no, it's in our mind all the time. And the only person to blame, if we wanted to be into blame, which of course highly suggests against, would be ourselves. Yeah. It's just a silly thing that, like uh, the, the, the character in Andy Mayberry that has the keys within reach through the jail bars. He put them on the wall there. He can just as easily take them off and unlock the jail cell and let himself out. And we're all in that same situation. Yeah, it's always there in the mind, available 24/7, every nanosecond. We have the ability to see things differently. Myra.
Yeah, just to add on some ego confusion that is very common on the course students, to think that if the body is not healed, I cannot awaken. If the body is not healed, I'm not worthy of God's love. If the body is not healed, I have to come back and do this all over again. Many thoughts in that trend. And there was just this morning, there was one woman in I always have Sunday morning coffee time. It's very nice. Well, there are two women actually. One has the sickness of Lyme, and she had that conviction that I'm lost. I don't know who I am anymore because this body is never going to heal. She really thought she lost the truth. And that's not possible, because nothing real can be threatened. And we spoke about that a lot, and it hit home finally that no, we're dreaming of this, and we are perfectly 100% spirit, eternal. Yeah. And there was another woman also whose mother now has gone into dementia, and she was very worried that my mother can't go to heaven now. I thought, oh my. I said, no, nothing real can be threatened. Your mother is already in heaven. And what we're dreaming here, it's so easy to forget that we're just dreaming. And page 1 says, let's just clear up the blocks. That's all. I give you forgiveness. It's the most beautiful gift I could ever give you. Let's just forgive everything and clear up the blocks, and you'll realize you're already home. And it doesn't matter what happens to that body. The ego cannot give you your worth. The ego can't decide if you're going to awaken. The ego doesn't want you to awaken at all. It's such a great misunderstanding to think that something spiritual is being held back because the body is not healed. So I just wanted to mention that. Yeah.
Thank you. That's such an important idea. And the idea that, a healthy body and a sick body are different in terms of truth kind of ignores the fact that the Course says there is no world, meaning there is no body or bodies. This is the central thought the Course attempts to teach, right? So, and again, that's part of this wonderfully radical teaching that actually does offer a complete solution, unlike the partial solutions that, the mixture approach of, well, a little bit of ego, a little bit of Holy Spirit, maybe I can make that work, Well, sooner or later, we're going to run out of experiments trying to mix the two, and realize the only faith that is going to work is trusting that part of our mind that says that nothing happened, and that the form has nothing to do with the reality. The illusion, the fantasy, the dream has nothing to do with our real identity. And it's the content of the mind, which is eternal innocence and eternal, well, interconnection as we think of it, or sameness, which is the gateway idea back to oneness. Yeah, thanks. Really helpful. And there's so many different aspects of what you just shared, but that's really helpful. That nothing that has to do with the
The
body.
one woman, she was very worried, whose mother's going into dementia. She can't do the lessons. She can't remember the lessons. She can't do the lessons. How could she ever wake up? Well, we had a good discussion about that, but that was worrying her. That was one of her fears. So we spoke about healing the fear in her mind would automatically heal her mother.
Yeah.
That her mother was always the beautiful son and child of God, and that nothing has changed. And it was really very beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's when we think about healing the brain, we're back to level of confusion again, aren't we? Yeah, and anything having to do with the brain and the apparatus of the machine, if you will. Yeah, thanks. Marissa.
Yeah, kind of to follow what Myra was saying. Yeah, I think dementia is chosen by a very powerful mind. Just like a baby is born with a full-fledged ego and right mind and wrong mind, so is dementia, which my mother has actually. And my mother, the experience of her, she is more joyful now, although in a little while later, she doesn't remember what we talked about. She just seems more freer to me. And she was always someone who was like a little sergeant, had to have everything just right. And now she just seems a little freer to me. But Helen and Ken died of cancer. And when I met Ken, I knew he was a healed mind. So there's a part of the Course, there's a little tiny section, if I may read, that talks about that. And it says, the miracle is useless if you learn, but that the body can be healed. For this is not the lesson it was sent to teach. The lesson is the mind was sick that thought the body could be sick. Projecting out its guilt caused nothing and had no effects. That's from text chapter 28, section 2. Yeah, I just wanted to, I was thinking about that the other day actually, and pulled up this section for that. But yeah, thanks Myra for that.
Thanks, Marissa and Myra. Both of those are really helpful because they really remind us that, we're this infinite, all-encompassing mind, really spirit, that has never been fragmented. But because our minds are so powerful, we've all participated in this massive hallucinatory experiment of fragmentation. And further, even more staggeringly unbelievable, we believe that we pulled off this impossible crime and fabricated individual bodies, and that we're attached to them and somehow identified with them. I mean, that's a bizarre, unimaginable idea to Holy Spirit, and one that it keeps reminding us is worth questioning at every turn. But so the course comes at it from all these different ways, and asks us to, what are we really putting our faith in? We're putting our faith in an absurd thought experiment that the ego made up, that has never made us happy. And but we keep trying all these different variations of it and permutations of it, and it's constantly morphing and shifting and changing around, and thinking, well, maybe if I, try, this flavor, this combination, or this juxtaposition of dream things, maybe I can make it work this way. And the Holy Spirit says, it's all the same. Try all the permutations you like, but sooner or later you're going to want peace more than not. Annalena, please.
I think what was important to me around Ken's teaching too, which is his emphasis that it's not just physical body, it's also our psychological minds. It's also our psychological mind. So within the realm of the personality, the psychological mind, there's not going to necessarily be a discontinuance of feelings of discomfort, feelings of anger, feelings of sadness, grief, etc. That those aren't necessarily going to change so much either. And that was a really important thing that he brought across to me.
Yeah, it's a package deal, huh? Yeah. Thank you, Myra.
Yeah, Marissa mentioned that a very powerful mind has chosen everything, and Ken really goes into that a lot, that we have chosen our own classrooms. What we here seem to experience was chosen even before these bodies were born into, that we were born into these bodies. And he says that so lovely in that book, which I am sharing now on Facebook every day. It says, act your part with honor. Act your part with honor because you chose it. Not as a person, not as a personality, not as a human being, but as the mind. Before we even were born here, we chose these classrooms. The script was written. And so, yeah, act your part with honor. And so, okay, this is what I chose. I've given myself this, lesson. So let me learn this lesson. And then what Annalena was just saying, that definitely when Jesus uses that lesson 22 times, I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. He's always talking about the whole package. It's not just flesh and bones. It's your personality, your name, your stories, your whole history, everything in the past, whatever. And that doesn't go away. What Annalena, that's not what's going away. But through right perception and guidance from the Holy Spirit, and living through peace instead of fear, then you can use everything in a totally different way. And that happens. That's, I guess, what you can call the happy dream.
Thank you, Audrey.
That just reminded me of a beautiful explanation of forgiveness that I read this morning. It says, in order to do forgiveness, you must shift the purpose of the world from persecuting prison to benevolent classroom, which is, I think, what Myra was just saying. These are the perfectly curated lessons that we need to return for the atonement. And peace comes from not fighting anything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. When we act our part with honor, we realize, okay, so I'm, I'm in this dream script. How can I be the most truly kind and benevolent to everyone, which includes myself? Well, the only way I can do that is by trusting and having faith in the Holy Spirit's correction, which basically says that nothing happened in truth. I don't know what that truth is, but I'm connecting with part of my mind that does, and letting that guide me to forgive everything that I made up. So it's back to the not know curriculum of just looking at all the stuff we made up and withdrawing our condemnation from it, and just saying, "Well, maybe I could, you know, s- slow down my auto ship purchases of weaponry and munitions to attack the world, and and eventually, you know, stop buying those military supplies in my mind altogether." Yeah.
Audrey, again, you said forgiveness description is from a persecuting prison to a what again?
Benevolent classroom.
Thank you.
And I think I would just add that, you know, the script is written, all the concepts that we hear, before I can get to a place where I have really internalized that, it's been very helpful and empowering to just believe, like Epictetus, when, you know, what this book was based on, act your part with honor, that quote, you know, he was a slave and he was being beaten, and he said, if you continue to do that, you're going to break my leg. And they broke his leg. And he just continued in, I mean, that's a pretty extreme example, but that's exactly what he's saying, that, okay, now my part is got a broken leg. And that's extremely powerful, because what I've learned since I've been studying this idea of resisting nothing is the fact that I resist everything. And even the things I don't resist, I would like to improve upon. I would like to tweak. And resisting nothing is actually a massive relief. And the sense that it is a benevolent classroom, that I'm not being punished for my illness. I'm not being punished for, you know, a terminal diagnosis. They're not punishments. They are a benevolent classroom. And I may not feel that way in the moment, as an Audrey, but there is the part of me that knows that it's true. And that's an inestimable gift.
Mm-hmm. As you're saying that, Audrey, it occurs to me, if you've ever watched a movie and turn the sound off, it has a very different effect. And it's kind of like the thought system we choose, what we have faith in, either ego or Holy Spirit, is like two different soundtracks. And the ego's soundtrack is this ominous, scary, big deal stuff that you know, every footstep is the monster getting closer or whatever, you know. And the Holy Spirit's uh, soundtrack is basically it's really quiet, and it says nothing happened and you're watching a movie, but it's a sweet correction, you know. And I saw a movie in a school class ages ago where it showed um, a little girl wandering through the woods, and a man that was following her, and would hide behind several trees behind where she was, so that when she happened to turn around, that he wouldn't be seen. And in the first one, you know, first clip showed you know, this ominous soundtrack, you know, and you know, very scary. And then the second one had a kind of a sweet little lilting melody, and then you realize that what they were really doing is playing hide and seek, and in one, and the other was a stalker. So it's all all a matter of, you know, which soundtrack am I going to listen to? What am I going to have faith in, right? Yeah, Audrey, or excuse me, Annalena. Yeah.
Just two quick responses to couple things Audrey brought up. One was on resistance, and fundamentally, I 100%, the valuation of not resisting, how important that is. But I've also, the little twist on it, and I think Ken would caution us often as students of Course in Miracles, not to translate it literally, because there are instances, level 2 reality, where we have to choose against and to resist. And sometimes that's a little place where I get it wrong and have to step back. Then secondly, I would love the word benevolence. It's one of my most favorite words. And when I associate with the aspect of myself I experience as associated with right mind and Holy Spirit, there's a sense of a benevolent indifference to all my experience, a benevolent indifference, a kind of kindliness and yet indifference towards everything, including my own emotional states. And those two keynotes really serve me in stuck moments, the recollection of that felt sense of benevolent indifference.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a phrase that I find helpful is, noticing when I'm attached to outcomes, because I can still be as, busy as can be on the level of form, doing things that I think make sense, in normal fashion. But when I'm invested in the outcome, that's when it becomes a more of a frenetic kind of a thing. Yeah, Audrey.
Yeah, just to clarify, acting your part with honor, because I have thought about this so much. It doesn't mean I never take action in the world,
Right.
but it means I come from a place of accepting as true whatever is showing up in front of me. And then my Holy Spirit can act through me. And this is what Ken says, also my buddy Eckhart says, that if I resist nothing, then I will know the kindest way to respond in the world. So it doesn't mean I never do anything, although I do a lot less and a lot less damage. But it does mean that what comes from that place of peace will be much more effective than anything I might, my ego might come up with, for what it's worth.
Thank
And
you.
what the
Yes.
ego might understand is the peaceable action sometimes isn't. That's where I've been surprised when I really let go altogether, when I felt stuck. Oh, it actually is the reverse of what I might have been brought up to believe as what it means to be a good person, for instance.
Yeah, thank you. Emily, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Yes. Paragraph 7. Truth and illusion have no connection. This will remain forever true, however much you seek to connect them. But illusions are always connected, as is truth. Each is united, a complete thought system, but totally disconnected to each other. And to perceive this is to recognize where separation is and where it must be healed. The result of an idea is never separate from its source. The idea of separation produced the body and remains connected to it, making it sick because of the mind's identification with it. You think you are protecting the body by hiding this connection, for this concealment seems to keep your identification safe from the attack of truth. I'm going to read that last one again. You think you are protecting the body by hiding this connection, for this concealment seems to keep your identification safe from the attack of truth. Yeah. I've been reading a book about anxiety and moving beyond anxiety. And there's a line that I have on a card right here that I think can, to me, fits with this paragraph. Anxiety makes us believe, or the ego makes us believe, that the only way to feel safe is to never feel safe. And when it's
a little bit of irony there, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
And when it's put like that, it sucks up all argument when you come up against the statement that for me, and it feels so true. It's just like, shit, that is what I'm doing. That sounds so dumb.
Well, isn't it wonderful how the Course lampoons our ego on every page?
Yes.
And if you really see the humor in it, is basically saying, you know, you believe these crazy contradictory things that, you know, if you try to believe them together, there's no way in hell they're going to work. Well, except in the hell that we made up, they seem to work, right? but
Yes.
but but darned if we don't try, you know,
Yeah.
to take sanity and insanity and put them in a blender and pour it in a glass and think, okay, there's my meal for the day, right? You know, it's like, well, good luck with that.
Yeah. I like the word lampooning, and
Yeah.
because I appreciate it and I come to it for that consciously and unconsciously, is like, someone stop me.
Yeah.
It's like, don't stop me, but someone please stop me. And those statements where we all know that it brings like a little bit of humor too, which I so appreciate, because I'll be very serious and it helps just lift me out. Yeah.
We're all recovering serious dreamers, right? And but I think the Course takes us from gravity to levity by asking us to forgive what we've projected and see that nothing happened. Yeah, thank you. Abe, would you like to read the next paragraph? And you've got your hand up too.
Yeah, I just wanted to first follow up on what Emily said. I think, she was very insightful with her observation of, you know, the ego's idea of being safe is to always worry about being safe and therefore never feeling safe. And in doing so, it thinks that it's being safe. Yeah, it's just, and I can relate to that because, I have a different flavor of the same contradiction, which is, the way to be peaceful is to attack when you feel threatened, and that will maintain your peace. And it just
the nuclear stockpile continues,
right?
right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, set off the weapons out. Shoot the weapons off, and that's the way to be peaceful. And it's just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see. So paragraph 8, correct?
Yes, please.
If you but understood how much this strange concealment has hurt your mind, and how confused your own identification has become because of it, you do not see how great the devastation wrought by your faithlessness, for faithlessness is an attack that seems to be justified by its results. I think it was just right there talking about our contradictions.
Yep.
We follow them, yeah. For by withholding faith, you see what is unworthy of you and cannot look beyond the barrier to what is joined with you. Yeah, so, I think that the ego is very clever, and how he sets up all these ideas in our head that basically amount to a dog chasing his tail. The dog thinks he's going to be happy when he finally catches on to the tail. And of course, he can never do that. And he just keeps going and going and going. And it just keeps hoping that he'll eventually catch the tail and be happy. And we're like that too. The ego has set it up, an impossible situation for us where we think our peace and joy are depending on us just going with the drama of the world and just chasing it, and chasing for joy and peace in the world. And we're never going to find it, of course. So I think this paragraph kind of says that in other words. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm glad you said the word impossible. I was thinking, the outcome that the ego purports to lead us to is impossible, but the thought system that is leading us, attempting to lead us to that impossible solution, is also impossible. So that's the good news. And again, back to Ken's chart, the dream of bodies and the world and space-time, this lower quadrant behind me is, that's the reflection of an impossible thought system. So, it's like Ken likes to say, you know, the emperor may be naked, meaning that there's nothing to the dream of space and time and bodies and, you know, illusion on the level of form. But, you know, not only is the emperor naked, but there's no emperor. You know, that the tyrannical thought system of the ego is all made up. You know, the whole sin, guilt, fear, projection, you know, perception, domino thing collapses. That game collapses the instant we realize, wait a minute, if I let Holy Spirit take me all the way back up to that blue dot and look at it through that kindly vision, I see that nothing happened. I just need the faith to keep at it, keep forgiving, going through those 3 steps of forgiveness over and over until I begin to generalize and see that there really isn't anything in this world that can make me sad or happy, and that's an independent variable. What happens in that whole side of the split mind is, you know, an independent variable to the equation of my peace. It doesn't enter into that equation at all. Yeah, thanks. I think Marissa, you had your hand up.
Oh, I was just going to add to the safety thing that Emily brought up, that you know, it's the only safety is in our defenselessness, and if we're not safe, we are vulnerable, therefore we are not as God created us, therefore I exist. There's always a purpose behind that lack of safety.
Yeah. Oh,
As
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we get to be a separate self that needs to be defended, and that's the consolation prize, huh? Whoopee-doo. Wait a minute. How worthwhile was that? Exactly. Yeah. Thanks. Annalena.
I like what Emily brought up, and what I often find helpful in relation to ego mind is equating it with the amygdaloid brain, which is basically like a reptilian brain, a dinosaur brain. We're all equipped as bodies with a reptilian brain that's running a lot of our lives. And the reptilian brain is designed to find and seek problems and be constantly on a kind of defensive to be watchful, the way animals, the way birds are constantly watching, we're on the ground because the cat might come as they're trying to eat their worms, right? We have that part in our brain, and that's the ego mind, and it's designed by nature per se to be carrying that on all the time. And so yeah, making that switch and just simply recognizing it or calling it out, like, oh, that's dinosaur mind. On when I do that with myself, I can do it and say, oh, that's my ego mind. But it also helps to remember, oh yeah, this body is equipped with, you know, a brontosaurus or a T-Rex brain. It helps me call it out and step back from it.
That's great. I was thinking the ego mind is constantly blathering, slathering, and slithering. It's that's what it does. It just keeps on spewing its scaly skepticism of
Look, I
truth.
remember in junior high, they made us study Jabberwocky. I mean, that's a good old poem. And that's
Oh, I
been
love that
coming
poem. Yeah,
to my mind lately, the Jabberwocky, the slithering gimble in the wave. You know, I still remember that sentence.
all mimsy were the borogoves and the mome rats outgrave.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's
exactly.
the ego mind, the Jabberwocky.
Exactly. Yeah.
Slithering.
And if we can just look with humor, thank you, Emily, at the absurdity of that jabbering mind that's totally wonky, yeah, and silly and absurd, and just say, wow, what an incredibly strange trip I've put myself on listening to this propaganda machine that makes no sense. And I put my faith in the wrong thought system, but the solution is in my mind, hurrah, hurrah. And I just have to trust the part of my mind that we call Holy Spirit to lead me out of the insanity. Yeah. Well, we've only gotten about halfway through this wonderful section, but that's fine because we've had a great discussion. And let's see. Leslie, would you like to read the next paragraph, and we'll use that as a closing meditation? How's that sound? And as a class assignment, everyone can, if they so elect, read the rest of the section and report back in the next class. How's that sound?
So I'm doing paragraph 9.
Yes, please.
To have faith is to heal. It is the sign that you have accepted the atonement for yourself and would therefore share it. By faith, you offer the gift of freedom from the past, which you received. You do not use anything your brother has done before to condemn him now. You freely choose to overlook his errors, looking past all barriers between yourself and him and seeing them as one. And in that one, you see your faith is fully justified. There is no justification for faithlessness, but faith is always justified.
Any comments on that before we
Oh.
meditate on it?
Well, I love it. It feels awesome. And it makes me laugh when I don't do that, actually reading this.
Yeah, if we can laugh non-derisively with not a mean spirit in our minds, bones, so to speak, and just say, wow, how silly I have been in being faithless and banking on these dead horses that the ego tells me to invest in, of outcomes in the world that are going to make me happy. Right? Yeah, right. But it's the genuine, the true skepticism of the insanity that is that I think the Holy Spirit asks us to entertain, just to say, well, what if the ego had it all wrong? Wouldn't you be better off? What if you did have faith in everyone you meet or think about, not in their dream figures or their bodies or their personalities, but their real identity that I'll help you see by forgiving what you're projecting. And if you can keep forgiving what you're projecting, what's behind the facade will then be glowing and illuminating your mind, and with the same identity that we all share. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, I'm just going to read the last sentence, and then we can meditate for a few moments. You see the Christ in him, and he is healed because you look on what makes faith forever justified in everyone. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Great
Bruce.
discussion.
That was great.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yes, thank
Everybody.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Bruce.
everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.